Hello team and welcome back to Transfer Winners and Losers, where we debunk, demystify, deconstruct silly season. Joining me is Zachary Jalab. How are you on this very fine Monday morning, sir?
Very good, mate. Very good, mate. Summer's here. Cannot complain. The sun is shining. And what a Monday it is. What about yourself? How's your weekend?
It was great. I've been off, haven't I? Thank you for filling in a Sunday vibes. Judging from the comments, you've done a tremendous job. I was in the City of Love. I was in Paris with the other half for most of last week. And it was sublime, my friends. Some great food recommendations from Van Straten, as you'd all expect. But here's some food for thought. Hey! It is our talking point, which is a double header on this week's episode. We're going to discuss Porto rejecting, apparently, Manchester United's mega bid for one of their strikers and give you a wee update on the Raheem Sterling saga that is unfurling with rumours gaining momentum that he's on his way to Chelsea. But let's start with the more obscure. Let's start with Evanilson of Porto, apparently on his way to Old Trafford, because early this morning, Zachary, Portuguese publications Record and O Jogo were reporting that United had bids of 65 million euros turned down for Evanilson. However, they have also said that Porto are willing to deal at 70 if PSG don't buy midfielder Vitinha. I mean, all the big clubs are circling around Porto this summer, aren't they? And it looks like they're going to sell 3 or 4 first-team players for absolutely whopping transfer fees. Now, this rumour hasn't really gained any momentum in UK publications yet, so we're yet to determine the validity of these claims. But who is he, and why would Manchester United want to spend all that money on him, Zach? If these rumours were true, let's say.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, Porto are kind of going through financial straits at the moment. That is why they're a lot of their players obviously being rumoured to be leaving. But prior to this season, Evanilson was only had 11 top-flight stars and just 22 years old. In fact, he's only just broken 20 league goals. So the 21-22 season, it was very much his breakout campaign. He made his name in the papers, that's for sure. Now, he's played in a 2 up top for Porto throughout this season, with the hugely influential Mehdi Taremi up top as well. And in 30 Liga NOS appearances, he contributed to a healthy 18 goals, something that you can't complain, which is actually the same amount as Luis Diaz as well, although he ended up playing 500 minutes more than him in the same league. Obviously, Diaz moved to Liverpool halfway through the season. Now, he's the same age as Liverpool's brand new signing from the Portuguese league, Darwin Núñez, but he's probably about a season behind in terms of development-wise, considering that Núñez was starting last season for Benfica. So, Chris, I've got to ask you, is he worth this money? It's a lot of money to spend on someone that's only been there, really, for his breakout campaign.
Yeah, he was there last season as well, bit of a super sub last season. It does seem like a crazy high transfer fee, given that Luis Diaz went for 42 million, and even then that raised a few eyebrows. Obviously, Fabio Vieira has moved from Porto to Arsenal for 34 million, although there was a clause in his contract. So it does beg the question, does Evanilson represent good value at £60 million? And I'm not so sure. We don't want to pull the wool over your eyes. I've not watched an awful lot of him. But, like you said, Liverpool have taken a similar gamble on Darwin Núñez, albeit off the back of 2 good seasons rather than 1. But I will say this, from a top-line perspective, Evanilson's numbers last season didn't really pop in the same way that Luis Diaz's did before he moved to Merseyside. So, for example, the Brazilian is averaged 2.8 shots per 90 last season. Not really a patch on Diaz's 3.8. And, of course, that was from the wing. And it's not like these efforts were quality over quantity either, let's say. He was still taking less shots from inside the box than the Colombian wide man. Now, from some of the comps I've watched, he does look like a highly technical player, very neat on the ball, very good in small spaces, let's say. Although, without being dazzling, I mean, well represented by the fact he only completed 0.8 dribbles per 90 last season versus Diaz's 2.7. Now, look, they obviously play different positions. They're at different points in their career, like Diaz was in his mid-20s. So a direct comparison, not that instructive. What I'm trying to say is here, Evanilson's numbers don't look as Premier League ready as Luis Diaz's did when he moved. But mean, Diaz caught fire, didn't he, straight away, and we thought he'd take some time to adapt. So, yeah, it could work. Obviously, Manchester United need a striker that is willing to sit on the bench, be a rotation option until Ronaldo ages out, right? And the Brazilian might just be that guy for them. Fits the bill in that regard. But I want to hear from some Liga NOS fans in our sub base. I want to hear from some Manchester United fans back home. What do you lot make of this deal? Does it make sense? And if so, make it make sense in the comments for me below. Zach, let's move on to the Raheem Sterling situation then.
Yeah.
Can you give me the lay of the land?
Yeah, for sure. This kind of came out of nowhere for a long time. It was talking about Jesus leaving, and now Sterling's been added. Obviously, with Alvarez and Haaland coming in, that's 2 players into their front line. 2 players probably need to go with the way that Pep Guardiola already rotates. So these 2 have come to the forward line. But as for Raheem, look, he's 27 now. I think he turns 28. Near the beginning of the season, either October, September time. And he's going into his last season of his deal. So really, if Man City are going to make any money on him, they're going to have to sell him this summer or in January. Otherwise, they risk losing him on a free next season. There had been rumours about him signing a new contract with City throughout the last season, but it never really came to fruition. And Chelsea at the moment are said to be growing in confidence about gaining his signature on a contract. Now, Sterling became a little bit concerned about his playing time during the 2020-21 season, and as a result, as I said earlier, didn't commit his long-term future to City. Now, he has continued to be in and out of the team as well throughout this season just gone, so he's said to be open to a move this summer. Now, people will be questioning how does he help Chelsea? I mean, Chelsea's biggest thing and biggest issue for the past couple of seasons, especially last season, was goals. I mean, last year, Chelsea's top goal scorer was Romelu Lukaku in all competitions, and that was only on 15 goals. The season before that, it was Jorginho. And so it's a position that Chelsea have been looking for a long, long time. Now, statistically, Chelsea have actually been pretty good in front of goal. They're averaging a healthy 2 goals per 90 in the Premier League last season. And that was with a misfiring Romelu Lukaku and essentially without a striker. And it was actually their most since 2016-17. But it's really not enough to kind of keep up with pace from Liverpool and City, who are averaging 2.5 and 2.6 respectively. Now, again, people will be asking, does it bring Chelsea closer to them? It definitely helps. It would definitely help. I mean, Chelsea have some issues with their wingers and their consistency. Christian Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech, Callum Hudson-Odoi. The only one that you can kind of see that's always there is Mason Mount, and he was obviously fantastic last season. And as for Raheem Sterling, he's put up double figures in goals for the last 5 seasons now, which is fantastic, especially for a winger. And on top of that, he can play anywhere across that front line. We know how Tuchel likes to change things for certain games. He can play left wing, he can play right wing. He can even play striker as well. But the only question I'd have to ask for you, Hamill, is who do you think maybe is sacrificed for Chelsea in that front line?
Well, we were talking about this before we started recording, weren't we? And you think that Chelsea are going to stick with that 3-4-3 next season, although there has been some sort of deliberation around, will Tuchel change system to accommodate new signings? And the only way I can see him sort of hitting the ground running and not upsetting the balance that Tuchel has established at Chelsea is perhaps playing him on the left in that floating 8 come 10 position with Mason Mount on the right and leaving Kai Havertz up front, although Kai Havertz does need to be a lot more clinical to I suppose to embolden Tuchel to make that decision or stick with that decision to have the German as his leading number 9. So yeah, I can see him slotting in there. We've seen Sterling do it from both wings. He's been much more prolific from the left, historically been a little bit better creatively from the right. So I don't think that's the worst option, particularly at the fees being bandied about. We're hearing 35 to 40, potentially rising to 50 with 1 year left on his deal. 50 is getting a little bit steep, isn't it? But palatable, very, very palatable at 35. What do you make of it as a Chelsea fan?
Yeah, man, I really like it. Like, if we can get him for under 50, I'd be over the moon, because obviously he's going to be coming in on big wages as well. Like, you wouldn't expect him to drop his wages that he's on at City, so you'll be thinking close to £300,000 a week. So if you can get him for, I know a bid already of supposedly £35 million with add-ons has been rejected. So if Chelsea could get to 45 million quid and get that in, I'd be quite happy for that. I think City should also be pretty happy for a guy that is going into his last season, and not signing in a new deal. They're not necessarily in the power position here as they could have been maybe last summer. And so I think for Chelsea as well, like, it'd be really, really good. That front line is still very, very young. Adding someone with Premier League experience and who has been there and done it, especially in either position, would be fantastic. Like, his off-the-ball movement is so good. Like, it's been developed so well at City. And for that to come in with the idea of Reece James putting in those crosses and him being at the back post and things like that is something that does excite me. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. Like, that's one thing I've promised myself with transfers, is not to get too excited before they happen. But yeah, if we can get him for under 50 million quid, I'd be over the moon for sure.
Yeah. What makes me think this will happen is the fact that City can get by without him, as you alluded to earlier, has been in and out the side for the last couple of seasons. I mean, he was their second top goal scorer still last season after KDB, and KDB had to score that mega haul against Wolves, didn't he, to establish himself as a top dog in that regard. So he's still important to Pep Guardiola, but not irreplaceable. And I think at one point he perhaps did have that status, maybe 3-4 seasons ago. We know that wingers experience their peaks a little bit earlier than an awful lot of other positions. So, City Football Group probably got one eye on that. We've had him at his peak. We can still get him. If we can still get £50 million for him, that's a £6 million profit on when we purchased him from Liverpool, which is insane to think about. Riyad Mahrez also in the last year of his deal. Jack Grealish and Phil Foden coming a bit more to the fore, so they're probably not stressed about either situation. So it does feel like one of those rare deals that makes sense for both parties, for multiple parties. But Sam Lee, a City insider, said even if City do sell Sterling, there are no plans to replace him, which again I think shines a big old light on the fact they think they can get by without him, and that Calvin Phillips and Brighton left back Mark Cucurella are the only two serious targets. So we'll see how that all plays out. Right, let's move on from that doubleheader then and go straight into our winner and loser, which I've combined for this week. We've got one narrative here, and it is the battle for Lisandro Martinez. Now, I've got to say, Zach, I thought, Arsenal sort of putting in a bit of 25 to 30 mil, pretty cheeky for a player of Lisandro Martinez's calibre. And I thought, okay, if he's available for that price, why aren't several top sides in for him? And we're starting to see flickers of interest from elsewhere. And, according to various Dutch insiders, Manchester United now have an interest in him, particularly after talks with Jurrien Timber allegedly broke down. So, Zach, I mean, can you shine any light on Erik ten Hag possibly dipping his toe back into his old club for the Argentine centre-half?
Yeah, mate, he's getting the band back together. He's got Van der Beek. He's now looking to get Martinez. Who knows who's next after that? Obviously, there's been rumours for Anthony as well. There were originally rumours at the beginning about Timber. But yeah, Manchester United fan accounts have been quoting Dutch transfer insider Mike Verwij, who allegedly said Manchester United are preparing an offer for Lisandro Martinez. Now, it is unsure where he'll play exactly. He can play at centre-back. He can play at DM. He can play at left-back. And so it kind of ticks off a number of positions that Erik ten Hag would be needing. I think obviously probably less so left back, but especially that DM position and centre half. It depends. Obviously, he's not had time yet to work with the likes of Harry Maguire and Varane and who else they have at the back there. But it is known that Manchester United need a DM as well. So he could be fantastic if he was to play there as well. Obviously, they've got Lindelof at Manchester United too at the back. Now, if I'm being completely honest on where I think would be best for him to go to, in terms of a safer club, I would probably pick Arsenal for now, just because that Arsenal are building a young side that are coming through. The signings that they've made over last season, and to be honest, the targets and signings they're looking to make this season are really enticing, and are showing of the efforts of trying to build a club for the long term. Whereas with Manchester United, there is still the worry about what is it going to be. You know, even though they've said they're going to give all the power to Erik ten Hag, will it be there? Will Erik ten Hag be there in 3 years' time, whatever? However, I can also understand where he wants to go play for his previous manager, like the project that is Manchester United, the possible success that Manchester United could have if it is successful under Erik ten Hag, and obviously playing for arguably the biggest club in the world. I can understand both sides, and I think if he goes to either, I think he probably is a starter at both clubs, whether it is United, whether it is Arsenal. So maybe it's just about who pays him the most, to be quite honest.
I agree in the sense that Arsenal is the more settled project. He knows what he's walking into, despite having previously worked with Erik ten Hag. Although I do think that if he was to go to Arsenal, he would be trying to displace someone in a very settled back four. Admittedly, when everyone's fit, if Tierney and Tomiyasu are fit,
Saliba back as well.
Magalhaes and White will start. Yes, Saliba coming back into the side in terms of depth, competition for places. But I think he walks into the side at DM at Manchester United. So we'd probably see more minutes for the Red Devils. And maybe Ten Hag, and if he promised him minutes, would believe him in that sense. So yeah, perhaps if Manchester United did come in with a meaningful bid, and apparently it's going to take 41 million euros to prize him away from Amsterdam, I can see him maybe going that way. But what do you guys at home think? Let us know in the comments below. And let's also end with an update on Gabriel Jesus, who you mentioned prior, Zach, because South American football expert Tim Vickery was in the Sky Studios giving his two penneth.
He was Brazil's World Cup centre forward in Russia 4 years ago, and he didn't score a goal. That's a trauma for him to this day, because there have been many maligned Brazilian centre forwards who managed to score goals in World Cups. Serginho in '82, Fred in 2014. Gabriel Jesus, in a team that was attacking, that was playing most of the game in the opponent's half, didn't manage a single goal. That was a huge blow to him. And ever since then, there's been this question mark. What are you? Are you a centre forward, or do you want to play wide? I had a chat with him about him with Brazil's coach, Chichi, who said after the World Cup, he called Gabriel Jesus over and he said, "Where do you want to play?" And Gabriel Jesus, he said, "I don't mind." And the coach said, "Clearly you do mind. Clearly you have a preference. Tell me where it is you want to play." And he said a little bit sheepishly, "I would rather go wide." And since then, Brazil haven't really used him as a centre forward. They've used him more off the bench, actually, as a wide striker. In fact, earlier this month, he scored his first goal for Brazil in 20 games. It's a long, long, dry time. And there's been a sense that he's been running away from that centre forward position, and perhaps running away with the comparisons with Agüero as well. So what are Arsenal buying? This needs to be very, very clear if they want to go ahead with this deal. What are they buying? Where does he want to play? Where is he going to fit into their system of play?
Moment of the week, pretty simple this week, Jalab, and it is some housery from one of Arsenal's new signings, Matt Turner from the New England Revolution, refusing to sign Tottenham Club. That is one way to endear yourself to a new fan base without having played a single minute. That brings us to the end of the show. Zachary, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. Have you got any plugs for the rest of Football Daily content?
Yeah, for sure. If you've not checked out Sunday Vibes, then check that out from yesterday, or went live yesterday, I should say. We recorded that on Friday. We spoke about the other 14 teams in the Premier League. You often say that we only speak about the top 6. However, we gave all of our time to the other 14 and how they're doing in the transfer window so far, and kind of our early predictions on how they'll do next season. So make sure you check that out. If you want to check us out on other things, then check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat.
And TikTok. Pretty active on TikTok now, aren't we? That is the end of the show. Like this video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll see you next week for another dose of transfer winners and losers.